If you've ever felt invisible, unwanted, or judged for something you couldn't control, stay with me until the end of this story. And before we begin, if this story touches your heart even a little, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. She said it so quietly that at first I thought I misheard her. No one wants to date me. We were sitting on a worn wooden bench outside the community library, the kind of place where people go when they don't want to be alone but also don't know where else to belong. The afternoon was fading into evening, and the sky looked tired, like it had carried too many secrets all day. She stared at her hands, twisting her fingers together as if she was trying to wring courage out of them. Then she took a breath that sounded heavier than it should have been, lifted her shirt just enough to reveal the truth she'd been hiding, and waited for me to look away. I didn't. What I saw wasn't something shocking in the way movies try to shock you. It was real. A long scar ran across her side, pale against her skin, with the faint outline of medical tape marks that time hadn't fully erased. It was the kind of scar that tells a story of hospital lights, sleepless nights, and fear that doesn't leave when the doctors say you're fine now. She dropped her shirt quickly, like she expected rejection to arrive any second, the way it always had before. "My name is Sarah," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "And that's the reason people stop calling back. I met Sarah 3 weeks earlier by accident. I'd gone to the library to escape my own thoughts after another long day of feeling like my life was standing still. I was 32, working a job that paid the bills but fed none of my dreams, and carrying a quiet loneliness I didn't talk about much. Sarah was arguing gently with the librarian about a late fee she couldn't afford yet. Her voice wasn't angry, just tired. I paid the fee without thinking, and she looked at me like I'd done something heroic instead of something small. We started talking after that, about books at first, then about life, then about the kind of things people usually save for late-night conversations with friends they trust. She laughed easily, but there was always a pause before it, like she had to give herself permission to be happy. I noticed how she wore loose clothes even in warm weather and how she avoided mirrors without realizing it. That afternoon on the bench, she told me her story. How at 24 she'd been diagnosed with a serious illness that came out of nowhere. How the surgeries saved her life but took something from her she hadn't known she valued so much, her confidence. How the first guy she dated afterward had gone quiet the moment she told him. How another had said, "You're great, but I don't think I'm ready for all that." She said those words in his voice, mocking him, but her eyes betrayed how deeply they'd cut. "I don't blame them," she said quickly, like she was afraid I would. "Everyone wants someone easy, someone normal." I felt something tighten in my chest. Not pity, anger, not at her, but at the world that had taught her to shrink herself to make others comfortable. I thought about all the times I'd walked away from something good because it seemed complicated. All the times I'd chosen comfort over courage. "I'm not going anywhere," I said before I could overthink it. She blinked. "You don't have to say that." "I know," I replied. "That's why I am." The days that followed weren't magically perfect. We didn't turn into some fairy tale couple overnight. Instead, we did something much harder. We were honest. Sarah told me about her fear of being touched, not because it hurt physically, but because it reminded her of hospital rooms and doctors who never asked before examining her. I told her about my fear of failing at anything that actually mattered, how I hid behind routines so I wouldn't have to risk disappointment. We went on slow dates. Walks instead of dinners. Coffee instead of loud restaurants. We talked about dreams we'd buried and ones we were too scared to name. Sometimes she'd pull away, emotionally, convinced it was only a matter of time before I left. Sometimes I'd feel the urge to run when things got too real. But every time, we came back to the same place, conversation. One night, weeks later, she showed me the scar again. This time not with shame, but with a steadier hand. She told me what it felt like to wake up after surgery and wonder if anyone would ever see her the same way again. I listened. I didn't rush to fix it. I didn't tell her it wasn't a big deal. I let it be the big deal it was. "You're still here," she said softly. "I told you," I replied. "I'm not going anywhere." The real challenge came when life tested us, not with words, but with action. Sarah was offered a job opportunity in another city, one she'd dreamed about before getting sick, one she'd given up on because she didn't think she deserved good things anymore. She was terrified, not just of moving, but of believing in a future that might disappoint her again. She expected me to ask her to stay. Instead, I helped her pack. We argued about it, of course. She accused me of not caring enough. I accused her of being scared of her own strength. In the end, we sat on the floor surrounded by boxes, both of us exhausted and quiet. That's when I realized love isn't proven by holding on, but by standing beside someone while they choose themselves. I'm scared you'll forget me, she admitted. I'm scared you won't go, I said honestly. She went. We tried long distance. Some days were hard, some calls ended in silence. But we grew, separately and together. She found confidence in her work. I found purpose in finally changing my own life instead of complaining about it. A year later, she came back to visit. She looked different, not because the scar was gone, but because the shame was. We sat on that same bench outside the library. She smiled at me and said, "You know, someone asked me out last week." I raised an eyebrow, and I said no. She laughed. Because I realized I don't want someone who's okay with me. I want someone who chooses me. She reached for my hand. And I already know what that feels like. This story isn't just about love between two people. It's about the kind of love that stays when it's easier to leave. The kind that sees scars, not as flaws, but as proof of survival. If you've ever felt unworthy, remember this: the right people don't love you despite your struggles, they love you including them. If this story spoke to you, please like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us we're not alone. And remember, no matter what scars you carry, there is someone out there who will look at you and say, "I'm not going anywhere."